Please subscribe to help you and your motorcycle perform better.
While surfing roadracingworld.com, we noticed a press release for the 2021 Aprilia Racer Days schedule. These are track days for the general public sponsored by Aprilia, where they bring a fleet of demo bikes for attendees to test ride. We signed up for their season opener at Buttonwillow Raceway. We were able to test their all-new 660 line of parallel twins, which boast 100 horsepower. First up, the Tuono naked version. Here's a preview.
Let's take a look up close and personal to the 660 Tuono and see, as per our showroom series, how does it figure for us. So before I sit on it, I want to just do a couple of reviews. We've got an elliptical toe piece on both the shifter and the rear brake, so we can angle it backwards and forwards. That's nice. It's a great feature to have. Bar to bar, grip to grip, it's 28.5 inches. So that's pretty wide. So that's interesting. The bar's pretty flat too. There's very little down drop between peak and trough. So very little degree angle down this way, and it doesn't angle back a whole lot either. So that's nice. The clutch and the brake lever are identical to the RS. So in terms of this gap, we know they'll be massively different. So it'd be interesting to see if it's the same. Basically 11.5 centimeters to the ball and 8.5 centimeters to the ball. But this is adjustable, this is not. So, all right, let's do the initial sit. Okay, so as far as the seat goes, it's nice and narrow. It's not pushing my legs out, so I can keep my legs nice and tight. So a 30-inch inseam, and I'm firmly on the balls of my feet, so that's great. As far as the grip goes, sat here at 5'9". If I want to sit upright, I'm nowhere near the bars. So I'm going to keep my head still. I'm coming forward, so now I'm looking directly at the clock. Second knuckle is way outside the shoulder on both sides. If I go to the edge of the grip, if I go to the inside of the grip, it's still way outside my shoulder. And it also feels like I'm offset. This gap to my torso is smaller than this gap. That's what it feels like, and I've got to pull my head up to look straight. So overall, I'm getting a lot of crunch and nodding up here in my shoulders, but if I go here, right there, that'd be perfect for me. So a different handlebar right out of the gate that's narrower, probably a good two inches narrower, probably closer to the RS width, which is 3 inches. That'd be much nicer for me and a lot more comfortable. So I'd want to almost like a Supercross bar that came up and across, but roll it back. That feels quite nice. Now, this is just sitting here, right? It's not in the road, you're not riding, you don't have the wind force here. As far as the clutch lever goes, if I'm in tight, I can't get my finger over the edge. And you'll also notice that fingers going diagonal to try and find a spot to get it. So biomechanically, that's all bad. Clutch free play is correct, but I can't get to the clutch, so I'm going to have to pivot and go get it. So fortunately, with the shifter up and down, don't need the clutch, so that's great, but still, the angle here is too acute that way. So adjustable clutch lever is mandatory. As far as the brake goes, it's too close. So it has to go down a lot, and it's nowhere near correct for my finger length. So brake lever is adjustable in angle, which is great, and we could probably get it to where we need it, but as it's a demo bike, we're going to ride it as is, and I'll give commentary on where we're at. So that takes care of that. Let's go to the shifter side, because that's the important side. I'm going to put my heel against the stop, and you can see where the shifter is. It's right on, well, it's actually on the metatarsals, if that's the correct correct one. Tarsals are for the feet. I'd prefer it to be here, so the gap for me in this distance is too short. Now because it's elliptical, moving it from 3 o'clock on the clock face around to 9, maybe even 8 o'clock might fix that and give me the right angle, because at the top of the shift, I am way less than 90 degrees here. So the angle of the shifter itself is wrong. So if I spin it that way, the shifter is still too high. We have an adjustable rod, so we can loosen the rod and push the shifter down and then get that at the right angle. So overall, ergonomically, I'd probably change the bars right away for me, because it's too wide and I've got a lot of tension up here in deltoids and trapezius muscles just to hold myself up, because this measurement seems to be, to me, too far. And that is 22 inches. So for a standard bike, I'd prefer 20 inches. Yeah, 22. So 20 inches would be a nicer reach for me. The other part that's good though, femur lines up with the inside tank angle. Tank lifts up straight, so the impact is above the area, closer to your belly button, so you can anchor in here no problem. Lock in when you're going around the track. So given my inseam of 30, fit is great. We don't need rear sets. It's just that 22 inches confirms that this would be much more comfortable for me. So that concludes the ergos. Let's go on to suspension and geometry. Now we know from the comparisons that equipment is the same, both in fork travel, shock travel, and componentry on the damping leg. So if we take a close look, we've got a leg with 0 adjustment on the Tuono 660. And then we have one leg that has damping and spring tension. So definitely a full second bounce at 10 out. One, two, we're at 2 clicks out on the Tuono. Wow, no wonder it's so slow. It has to go back to the settings they want it, because it's got to, I don't know who's going to ride it until I get mine. So we'll put it back at 2. I'm really curious if every Tuono is at 2 out, because that's going to make the bike sit like this, and definitely that's why the rear tire is so well worn. But if you go look at the front's super shiny, ultra smooth, because there's literally no weight on it until you start braking. So, but very, very, very different. It'll be interesting to see when we ride the Tuono how much of a different behavior it has to everything else. So let's put it back together and get it back in line. Alright, out we go. So we got the Tuono first. Gonna see how this does. Braking, stability, acceleration. We're out in A group, so we might not be in the best possible group for this, but we'll see. We'll have a look around. We got a few coming. So we got up and down quick shift, which is nice. Bend it into the corners. Remember, cold tires, so we're going pretty steady over cotton corners and everywhere else for the first lap and a half. And the checkered flag. So, if you're intermediate and a good intermediate rider, the Tuono version is going to be an absolute blast. Nice and upright, body's a little further back, weight's a little further back, so lots of rear wheel feel. Front, definitely, I would lower a tiny bit, probably go to the next ring down and call it good. There's too much weight coming forward, so if it's already there, it might actually be easier to ride. It might. We'd have to see on that one and see where it went and what happened. So, interesting geometry change in order. But now we need to check the settings and see where we're at. So, Tuono that Mr. Williams rode, we're going to see what the settings are. Then we're going to try and attempt to find my Tuono that I rode on and get that to compare and see where we were on settings. So forks.
In the initial suspension eval, Moss said that the bike is a bit choppered out, which it was, which is why I'm so hunched over the tank and you can't hardly see Moss in the camera because I'm trying to get up over the front end, get some weight on the front end. I thought the brakes were fantastic. Way better than the refurb brakes on the Trash Your Treasure Gixxer 750, the ones that had the recall on them. Got brand new brakes. These brakes on this Tuono, 5,000 times better. The power is peaky, like every parallel twin I've ever ridden. Makes its power between 7 and 10,000 RPMs. That goes all the way back to the old Ninja EX500 from a previous century. The quick shifter was perfect on upshifts. Sometimes the downshift blip was a little harsh, so I went back to using the clutch. It was an absolute blast to ride. The funnest low-power bike I've ridden since the EX500. Parallel twins are twins, for that matter, when it comes to these low CC bikes. Definitely the way to go because the torque just makes it leap. It just leaps. Love that. If I was regularly riding a street bike, I would want this bike.
I've got the last ride of the day back on my bike, and I'm going to make some setting change to it, which we have to revert to. So, after the ride, and let's see how it behaves now, only specifically for braking. Back of the bike was awesome when I rode it. The other part about that spongy braking, look at the ridges of rubber here from the front end just hitting and bouncing and stressing the hell out of the center of the tire on both sides. Now we've only got one lump generally on the slow side of the tire, but both all on the fast side have a huge rise on both. So let's see if a change with settings can yield a completely new read on tire wear in the front. Steering better with the rebound being slower, much more positive on steering, and transition side to side, it's a lot easier. So let's see how it behaves in sweeper. Little wobbly on the rear tire, it's still cold. They actually feel the rear wheel wobbling. Excuse me, the rear sidewall wobbling. Another lap and that should be up to temp. Braking stability, much better. Yeehaw! Ho, ho, ho. So much better. Trail braking's a lot more stable, a lot more fun. So, massive difference in braking stability. Unbelievably better. Look what it did to the front tire. 3 laps, 3 good laps, it cleaned it right off. So just that change transformed the bike. My hands aren't tired. It turns, it's easy, you don't have to fight it with a ton of body English. Great example of setting the bike up where tire wear gets to be even front and rear, and I guess we even got some sandy beach in there too. Great day. Thank you Aprilia USA for inviting us out. Victor, thank you so much for letting us work with you and your bike. And by God, if you get one of these and you take the time to set it up correctly, you are going to have an absolute ball. Absolute ball, either version. Take your pick. All right, as we always do with the showroom settings, we give some suggestions. And those are based on a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. But here's some settings and suggestions based on actually physically riding the bike at a reasonable pace and then going at a decent clip. So, if you are between 120 and 160 pounds,
catch the full video at davemosstuning.com.